Okay, so you want to start a dropshipping store. No inventory, no warehouse, no upfront risk. You find a product on AliExpress. You slap it on a Shopify store, you run some ads. And boom, money rolls in while you sleep. That's the pitch. That's the YouTube ad that got you here, probably. And here's the strange part. Dropshipping is simultaneously one of the easiest businesses in the world to start, and one of the hardest to actually keep alive. 90% of people who try it lose money in the first 90 days. And yet, right now, today, there are teenagers running 8-figure dropshipping, brands out of their bedrooms. Same model, same access to the same suppliers, wildly different outcomes. So by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how the money moves in dropshipping, why the margins are thinner than almost anyone tells you, why no inventory doesn't mean no risk, and why in 2026, the game has changed so much that half the old advice is basically obsolete. Let's start with the fantasy, because you need to understand the fantasy before you understand the reality. The pitch usually goes something like this. You buy a phone case for $2 from a supplier in Shenzhen. You sell it for $20 on your store. The customer pays you. The supplier ships it directly to them, and you pocket the $18 difference, never touching the product. Multiply that by 1,000 orders a month, and suddenly you're looking at an $18,000 profit for basically doing nothing. That's the math they show you in the course. That's the screenshot they show you in the ad. And technically, it's not a lie. It's just incomplete. It's like showing someone a picture of a casino's chip tray without mentioning the house. Also has to pay for the building, the electricity, the security guards, and the guy who keeps stealing towels. Here's the thing nobody puts in the thumbnail. That $2 product doesn't sell itself. You have to pay to put it in front of someone. And in 2026, that cost has exploded. Back in like 2015, 2016, when dropshipping first blew up, you could run a Facebook ad for maybe 50 cents a click and convert at 2–3%. Cheap traffic, low competition, huge margins. That era is dead. Facebook and Instagram ad costs have gone up something like 4 to 5 times since then, because now literally everyone with a laptop and a dream is bidding on the same customers. So that same phone case, you might now be paying $8, $10, sometimes $15 just in ad spend to get one person to actually buy it. Suddenly your $18 profit margin is a $3 profit margin. And that's before Shopify takes their cut, before the payment processor takes their 2.9% plus 30 cents, before you deal with returns, chargebacks, and the customer who wants a refund because the package took 3 weeks to arrive from China. So let's actually build the real numbers here, because this is where it gets interesting. Say you're selling that same phone case for $20. Product cost from your supplier, let's say $4 including basic packaging, because good dropshippers upgrade past the cheapest garbage suppliers pretty fast, since cheap product means returns. And returns are where dropshipping stores actually go to die. Shipping, even with a fulfillment partner, another $3 to $5 depending on the country. Transaction fees eat about $1. And then advertising. This is the killer, averaging somewhere between $8 and $12 per sale. If you're running paid ads on Meta or TikTok, add that up and you're looking at total costs of roughly $17 to $22 on a $20 sale, which means on paper, you might actually be losing money on your first sale to every customer. That's not a hypothetical. That's the actual, documented reality for a huge chunk of dropshipping stores. Industry data floating around from Shopify's own merchant survey suggests the average dropshipping store's net profit margin, after everything, lands somewhere between 10 and 15%. And that's the stores that survive long enough to be profitable at all. So how does anyone make money doing this? This is where the metaphor helps. Think of a dropshipping store less like a vending machine and more like a fishing operation. Your first sale to a customer, that's the bait. You're not trying to profit on it. You're trying to break even or take a small loss just to get someone into your net. The real money, and I mean the real money, comes from what happens after. It's the second purchase. It's the upsell at checkout. It's the email list you build from that first sale that you can market to for free forever. Successful dropshipping operators in 2026 aren't thinking about single transactions anymore. They're thinking about lifetime customer value. What is this person worth to me over the next year? Not just today. Because if you spend $12 to acquire a customer and lose $2 on the first sale. But that customer comes back 3 more times over the next 6 months, buying products with actual margin. You just turned a losing transaction into a genuinely great investment. That shift from single sale thinking to lifetime value thinking is basically the line between the dropshippers who make it and the 90% who quit after burning through their ad budget in month 1. Now let's talk about the types. Because dropshipping in 2026 isn't one business. It's really 3 different businesses wearing the same trench coat. The first type is what I'd call the general store. One of those sites, selling like 40 random trending products. Phone accessories next to kitchen gadgets next to pet toys. This was the dominant model back in the golden age, and it's basically dead now. Ad platforms got smarter, customers got more skeptical, and a store that sells everything signals to a shopper's brain that it's a scam, because legitimate brands specialize. The second type is the niche store, focused on one category. Say, dog grooming products or ergonomic office gear. This performs way better because the ad targeting is tighter and the branding actually looks like a real business, instead of a warehouse dump. The third type, and this is the one actually printing money right now, is what's called branded dropshipping. Sometimes people call it print-on-demand adjacent or private label light. This is where instead of just reselling a generic product, you find a manufacturer willing to slap your logo on it, maybe tweak the packaging, and you build an actual brand identity around it. Same supply chain, completely different perception. And perception is worth real dollars. Branded stores can often charge 30–40% more for the exact same physical item, because customers aren't just paying for the product, they're paying for the story around it. Let's talk about where the money actually flows in, because this is the part most explainer videos skip. A customer sees an ad, let's say on TikTok, because that's where a huge percentage of 2026 dropshipping traffic actually comes from now, way more than Facebook. They click through, they land on your store. And here's a stat that should genuinely shock you. The average dropshipping store converts somewhere between 1 and 2%. That means out of 100 people who click your ad and land on your site, 98 of them leave without buying anything. That's not a flaw in the system. That's just how cold traffic e-commerce works. And it's exactly why the ad math has to be so precise. If your conversion rate is 1.5% and you're paying $1.50 per click, you need to run through roughly 67 clicks to get one sale, which means that one sale has to absorb $100 worth of ad spend just to break even on traffic costs alone. Suddenly you understand why so many people quit. They run $500 of ads, get 3 sales, and think the business doesn't work, when really they just didn't have enough volume to let the math play out. Here's where it gets almost casino-like, honestly. Because dropshipping at scale is a numbers game with a small edge, if you have one at all, the operators who win are the ones who can survive the variance long enough to find their winning combination of product, ad creative, and audience. And once they find it, they don't just sit on it. They scale it aggressively because they know the window is short. Trending products in dropshipping have a life cycle now measured in weeks, not years. Something goes viral on TikTok. 1,000 stores jump on it within days. The market gets saturated. Ad costs spike because everyone's bidding on the same audience. And the profit window closes. The smart operators treat every winning product like a wave. You catch it, you ride it hard, and you're already looking for the next one before this one dies. Now, why do so many people still fail despite the math technically working for someone somewhere? A few real reasons, and none of them are what the gurus tell you. First, undercapitalization. People start with $300 thinking that's enough to test products, run ads, and find a winner. It's not, statistically. Most reliable estimates suggest you need somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 just to properly test enough product ad combinations to find one that actually converts. Because you're going to lose money on most of your tests before you find the one that works. Second, and this one's brutal, customer trust. Dropshipping has a genuinely bad reputation now, partially earned, because of a decade of scammy stores shipping garbage. Products with 6-week delivery times. Customers in 2026 are way more skeptical than they were in 2016. They check reviews. They screenshot your site and reverse image search your product photos. They know what a dropshipping store looks like on site. So stores that don't invest in genuine branding, real customer service, and faster shipping Even if it costs more, get filtered out by an increasingly savvy shopper base. Third, and this might be the biggest one, people treat it as passive income when it is, at least in the beginning, a full-time job disguised as a side hustle. You're doing customer service, testing ad creatives daily, negotiating with suppliers, handling chargebacks and refund disputes, and constantly re-optimizing a store that can go from profitable to bleeding money in a single bad week because a platform changed its algorithm. Let's talk retention, because this is actually the most underrated lever in the entire business. Acquiring a new customer through paid ads, we already established, is expensive, that $8 to $15 range we talked about. But getting an existing customer to buy again, almost free. Email marketing and SMS marketing, which cost basically nothing compared to paid ads, can generate anywhere from 15 to 30% of total revenue for a well-run dropshipping brand. That's the entire game changing in front of you. The stores making real money aren't the ones with the best ad creative. They're the ones with the best post-purchase system, automatic email sequences, loyalty discounts, bundled offers that turn a one-time $20 phone case buyer into someone who spends $200 with you over the following year. This is why branded dropshipping outperforms the generic model so consistently. You can't build an email list someone actually opens around a random dropshipped gadget nobody remembers buying, but you can build one around an actual brand. People feel some connection to .so let's talk real numbers on what success actually looks like, because I think people need a realistic benchmark instead of the six-figure month. Screenshots. A genuinely well-run dropshipping store, one that survived the first 90 days, found a real branded product angle, and built out proper email retention, is often looking at somewhere between 15 and 25% net profit margin once everything is optimized on, say, $30,000 a month in revenue, which is a very achievable, unsexy, realistic number for a solid single operator store. That's somewhere around $5,000 to $7,000 a month in actual take-home profit. Not the private jet the ads promised you, but genuinely solid income for something you can run from a laptop. And the stores that break past that, the ones doing seven figures a year, those aren't really dropshipping stores anymore in the traditional sense. They've usually transitioned into holding some inventory domestically to cut shipping times. They've built real supplier relationships with negotiated bulk pricing instead of paying retail-ish AliExpress prices, and they function essentially like a lean e-commerce brand that just happens to have started with the dropshipping model as training wheels. And that, honestly, is the real secret nobody puts in the course. Dropshipping isn't really the end business. It's the cheapest, lowest risk way to test whether a product and an audience actually want each other before you risk real money on inventory. The people who treat it that way as a testing ground, a first step, not the final destination, are the ones who end up building something that lasts. The people who treat it like a slot machine you can just keep feeding ad spend into, hoping for a jackpot, are the 90% burning through their savings in 90 days. Same platform, same suppliers, same access to the same customers. Completely different outcome, because the money was never really in the product. It was always in understanding the math well enough to survive long enough to find it. Let's zoom into a story, because numbers only mean so much until you see them play out on an actual human being. There's a guy, goes by a username, not going to use his real name, who started dropshipping in college with $400 saved from a part-time job. First product, a collapsible water bottle. He ran ads for 2 weeks, spent $350, made 4 sales. Total revenue, $80. That's not a success story. That's a cautionary tale in progress. Most people quit right there. He didn't, mostly because he had nothing else going on, honestly. He switched products, a pet hair remover, weirdly specific niche. Dog owners who were tired of lint rollers not working. Same ad budget, same platform, completely different result. 3 times return on ad spend in the first week. Why? Not because he got smarter overnight. Because he'd accidentally found what's called product market fit. That magic moment where the product basically sells itself because it solves a real, annoying, specific problem for a person who's already primed to spend money solving it. Within 4 months, he was doing $18,000 a month in revenue. Within a year, he'd registered an actual LLC, hired a part-time customer service person in the Philippines for $6 an hour, and switched from random AliExpress dropshipping to a private label version of the same pet hair remover, made by a manufacturer he found on Alibaba at a fraction of the per unit cost, with his own branding on the packaging. That's the arc. Test cheap, fail fast, find the signal, then build the actual business on top of it. Most gurus sell you the destination without ever mentioning that 90% of that journey is just expensive, boring trial and error. Now let's talk about how the platform landscape itself has completely rewritten the rules going into 2026. Because this matters more than people think. For years, Shopify plus Facebook ads was basically the entire industry. That's changing fast. TikTok Shop has become a genuinely massive player, and it works on a completely different psychological mechanism than a traditional Shopify store. On Shopify, you're pulling someone off a platform. They're browsing for fun and asking them to go make a purchase decision on an unfamiliar website. That's friction. That's the 1.5% conversion rate we talked about. TikTok Shop keeps the entire transaction inside the app. The person is already scrolling in a dopamine-driven impulse buy headspace. Conversion rates on TikTok Shop for viral products can run 3, 4, sometimes 5 times higher than a cold Shopify funnel, because you've removed almost all the friction. The trade-off is TikTok takes a bigger cut, somewhere around a 6 to 8% commission depending on the category. Plus, you're renting attention on a platform whose algorithm you don't control and can change overnight. So the smartest operators in 2026 aren't picking one or the other. They're running both, using TikTok Shop as a high-volume, lower-margin discovery engine, and using their own Shopify store as the higher-margin, brand-building, retention-focused home base, where they actually own the customer relationship, own the email list, and aren't at the mercy of a platform's mood. There's also the AI piece, which honestly changed dropshipping more in the last 2 years than anything since the model was invented. Product research used to take actual human hours, digging through AliExpress bestseller lists, scrolling competitor ads, guessing at what might trend. Now there are entire tools that scan ad libraries and flag products, getting sudden spikes in ad spend before they go fully mainstream. Store setup, which used to take a beginner a full weekend of fumbling through Shopify themes, can now get built in an afternoon using AI-generated product descriptions and AI-edited ad creatives. Customer service chatbots handle the repetitive "Where's my order?" messages that used to eat hours out of a solo operator's week. Here's the catch, though, and it's an important one, because every single one of your competitors has access to the exact same AI tools. The advantage they provide gets competed away almost instantly. It's the same story as the ad cost inflation we talked about earlier. When everyone can find winning products faster, everyone jumps on them faster, saturation happens faster, and the profit window that used to last months now sometimes lasts days. AI didn't make dropshipping easier in the sense of being more profitable. It made the entire game move at double speed, which actually raises the skill floor required to survive in it, even as it lowers the skill floor required to just get started. Let's talk about the part nobody wants to talk about, which is taxes and legal exposure, because this is where a lot of dropshippers get blindsided after they finally start making real money. When you're dropshipping internationally, you're not just running a store, you're technically running a cross-border import-adjacent operation. And depending on your country and the countries you're selling into, you can owe sales tax, VAT, or import duties you didn't budget for. The European Union, in particular, tightened its rules on low-value imports a while back, specifically because of the dropshipping boom, closing a loophole that used to let items under 22 euros skip import VAT entirely. That single regulatory change wiped out the margins on entire categories of products for stores selling into Europe overnight. This is the unglamorous, unsexy risk that never makes it into the six-figure screenshot. You're not just competing against other stores. You're operating inside a regulatory environment that can change the entire math of your business with one policy update you didn't even know was coming. So where does this leave things going into 2026 and beyond? Here's the honest answer. Dropshipping the way it existed in 2016, the general store, the random trending products, the razor-thin operation with zero brand identity, that version is basically extinct. And if someone's selling you a course built entirely around that model, be very skeptical of what decade they're actually operating in. What's replaced it is something closer to lean e-commerce entrepreneurship, where dropshipping is the entry point. The zero inventory risk way to test an idea. But the actual destination is a real brand with retention systems, a diversified traffic strategy across TikTok Shop and paid social and email, and eventually a transition toward private label products with actual margin protection. The people making real, sustainable money aren't chasing the fantasy of passive income while they sleep. They're running a genuinely demanding customer acquisition and retention business that just happens to not require a warehouse, and maybe that's the real lesson underneath all the numbers. The $2 product was never the business. The $18 markup was never the business. The business, the entire time, was figuring out how to get a stranger to trust you enough to hand over their credit card information for a product they've never held, from a brand they've never heard of, shipped from a country they've never been to, and then convincing that same stranger to do it again. Everything else, the ad spend, the fulfillment, the Shopify theme, that's just the plumbing. If you're actually testing a product right now, or you've got a drop shipping horror story from back in the golden age, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And honestly, half of my future video ideas come straight from that comment section. And if you want to see what happens on the other side of this, when a dropshipping store actually makes it and has to figure out manufacturing, shipping containers, and real inventory risk for the first time, that's a whole different economics breakdown. So make sure you're subscribed for when that one drops. Because the actual skill being bought and sold in dropshipping, the things separating the 90% who quit from the 10% who build something real, is trust, engineered, and earned at scale. One skeptical stranger at a time.